I taught my bird to whistle like a referee. I can make a free throw when I'm down on one knee. I've been a fan of basketball since I was 5. Now I am a fan of HoopSpeak Live. Hilarious analysis, a mystifying trope. An angel with a cudgel breaking bubbles of soap. Like honeybees buzzing around a hive. Everybody buzzing about HoopSpeak Live.
I'm not a James Bond nerd, but, I went with the girlfriend. And, coming back from the movie, I'm not very street smart. I'm a very trusting person. I once saw a man on my campus at college running with a laptop with the power cord dragging and thinking he must really be in a rush to class, and saw the guy who stole the laptop from racing after him. So that's a setup. I see this guy with a flashlight, head to toe, just dressed in all black with a beanie, just rustling around this shed, this storage unit next to our driveway. And Allie's like, "Oh my God, that guy's robbing the shed." And, having honed my James Bond instincts from watching this movie, I'm like, no, he probably owns it. He's just looking around. As we pull in, the guy jumps out and starts sprinting away. And in my head, I start playing the James Bond music, like, da-da-da. And I jump out in the sidewalk, and I just glare at the driver's license of the getaway car that he jumps in. And I just stare at it, thinking almost that I'm going to memorize this license plate. And the car drives away, and I'm just like, there was a Q? There was a V? There's just no chance. There's no chance. So I think it was just a lesson in, just because you watch people fight crime or pull off these amazing feats and hack into international computing systems, you can still easily screw up something fairly prosaic, especially if you have poor number memory, as I do.
Well, this is a real professional segue here to something we saw last night in Brooklyn. I would say that you were, in this moment, much like Raymond Felton, caught between lob pass to Tyson Chandler, the savvy but probably safe play, and the daring 12-foot floater. And you kind of ended up like him, about six inches short of the rim, neither one nor the other, neither brave and intelligent nor smart and safe. You were just kind of like, let the bad guys get a good look in my face, then not be able to do anything about it.
Yeah, no, Beckley, I haven't been working out as much out in the basketball season to start, but you don't have to call me Ray Felton. I mean, that hurts. It's a bit of a low blow. Come on.
Yeah, Ray Felton, I think Ian O'Connor wrote, in a game that would make John Starks proud, basically shot the Knicks out of the second half. I was sitting in, I had rafter adjacent seating for this game up in like the upper press, and the angle that I was looking at was like basically right down the barrel of the court. And as Felton went up, they're like down one or they were up one or something, and he goes up for the shot, and Tyson Chandler is wide open, like just 12 feet from the rim, and there's no one in the paint, like no one even close to the paint. All he had to do was just not shoot it and just let it fall somewhere below the rim, and it would have been a dunk and probably a Knicks win. He went up for the shot. That was a theme towards the end of the game, and of course the Knicks lost terribly.
Is it John Starks week because like Bargnani has a horrible game, Lillard has a horrible shooting, now Ray Felton? What is this homage to John Starks that I didn't hear about?
I don't know, but I hope it works out well, because when I bought the John Starks rookie card on QVC, about 10 years ago, thanks to my dad, maybe 15 years ago, it's really not appreciated in value. Perhaps it needs a John Starks week and an homage, some novelty charm in order for me to recoup my $50 on that.
$50. How old were you?
I can't remember my exact age, but whatever my age was the apogee on Starks. And since I didn't really have the internet like we do today, I couldn't suss out that John Starks was a little overhyped because he was a New York. I just thought it was like, everything's coming up Starks, you know, new superstar John Starks. He's going to average 30 points a game on three-pointers, do it the whole time.
$50 when you're 8 years old is like $3,000 in today money. That's so much of your 8-year-old amount of money. That's actually kind of pathetic.
Is it worse than being, I don't know, I think I was 22 years old and spending $78 on a Moochie Norris bobblehead on an eBay auction that I refused to lose?
That is a Pyrrhic victory, my friend.
That is the definition of Pyrrhic victory.
So Zach, I don't watch the Timberwolves until later in the year when Ricky Rubio comes back. But apparently they're terrible now, which would make our friend James very sad because Britt Robeson sort of put Malcolm Lee on blast today. Not very happy with his play. What's been going on? What's your assessment of the 5-game skid in Timberwolves land?
I'm not a person that freaks out over a loss. Like I don't live and die with losses anymore because I've got rent and a car payment and stuff. So like they just don't mean as much to me as they used to. But I actually feel really good about the team right now. They played over their heads and won games in the 5-2 start that they probably should not have won. And those were surprises, and that got everyone, myself included, thinking, oh, this team's better than we thought they were. And then they came back to earth, and 3 of those losses in a row have been with Kevin Love. Kevin Love has played all right. People are killing his defense. His defense was terrible against the Warriors. Against the Nuggets and against the Blazers, it was pretty decent. It was actually like he was good defensively against the Nuggets, and I just don't think there's much wrong. Like he's coming back, he's still wearing a brace on his shooting hand, and he's shooting 40%, but he's also grabbing rebounds, and he's been maybe a little below average on defense overall in those 3 games. But there's just working guys back in the rotation. This isn't a video game where things just magically click. Like you have to bring guys back in, and they've got 3 major rotation guys coming back with Barea, Pekovic, and Love, and it's going to be a work in progress. Rubio's going to be back in probably less than 3 weeks, and when that happens, they're going to have to work him back in. By February, late January, February, I think they're going to be an awesome team. I think they're going to be one of the top 8 teams in the West. Now, can they maintain to get to the playoffs throughout the whole season? That I don't know, but I actually feel really good about where this team is.
Yeah, Zach, how are the Wolves going to replace Pekovic after Harrison Barnes murdered him? I just want to know how they're going to go about that.
I feel really bad because I think Harrison Barnes had a great career in front of him, and he got a little ahead of himself. He dunked on someone, didn't look at who it was, starts yelling at the guy and flexing, as young people are wont to do. And that was great for him until he realized when he wakes up, I don't know, let's say February 8th.
He doesn't wake up?
He'll wake up February 8th to a shadow above his bed with a giant axe. And that's going to be the last we ever see of Harrison Barnes. So that was a great highlight. It's something we'll always remember him for. But I feel sorry that he had that reaction to his own play.
Yeah, that I wish we had the video queued up. I forgot that we were doing that. That dunk was nasty, and you know, Ethan, you said that you thought he being Barnes reminded you of Jeff Green. Green sort of, I don't know. Do you stand by that post dunk? Green has had some gnarly dunks, but why are you so resistant to the Barnes bandwagon?
Because he's on the Warriors.
I was surprised that you saw that. Yeah, I tweeted that out. I felt like I really wanted to admit it. It was weighing on me. I didn't like having that observation and feeling slightly similar players. And I felt really guilty keeping it inside. So just for honesty with the 5 people who read, I wanted to just get that out there, and it felt like just a burden had flown off my back. And the parallel is this: they both can jump really high, but the other skills they possess are somewhat debatable. You know, the handle isn't great. They're not the most efficient players. Barnes has a chance to be a better shooter, and perhaps a little like Green and not being entirely involved in the offense, but at least Barnes is involved, has the potential to be a more efficient contributor within the flow of it. But I do see that parallel between the two of them as athletic guys whose athleticism doesn't necessarily manifest itself. And the parallel I don't like, I don't know why I'm saying parallel like I'm drunk, is that they both don't exactly see the floor or pass to anybody.
Yeah, I'm trying to bring on our guy Charlie Widdoes here, but my mouse is like doing this weird thing over his screen. So I'm gonna pop off. You guys keep going. I'll be back in 1 minute, and I will bring Widdoes with me.
A well-oiled machine.
Yeah. I gotta say, man, are you a little worried about this whole? I thought that this Kirilenko, Love, Pekovic, it would just click. It would just click like a video game, as you said, and be a great front court. And I'm a little worried about its prospects, man. I just can't. I don't know.
If they're still playing like this way 3 weeks from now, I'll be worried. But they really haven't had that much time on the court together between Pekovic going down, Love already being down, guys coming back. Like, it's just going to take a little bit of playing time together to get used to each other. And I think 3 weeks from now, I'll look back at all these comments about, oh my God, this stuff's falling apart, and I'll just laugh at it because they're not going to win a championship. They're not a top 4 team in the West, but I think they're going to be one of the better teams out there.
All right. Well, moving to a team that maybe is going to be a top 4 team, or a lot of people thought that, but then they started stinking. From Clipperblog, friend of the show, an actual friend in real life here in Brooklyn, Charlie Widdoes.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on. Beckley, I figured you'd wait till Caron Butler had a 33-point game to bring me on. I know you're a big fan.
Yeah, this is something that Widdoes and I argue about all the time, is whether or not Caron Butler should be on the court. Widdoes is argued that his three-point shooting is enough, and yes, he hit 10 threes, including 6 in a quarter last night.
May I interject real quick? What happened the one time Caron Butler had himself a game? Did they win or lose?
Yeah, right. It's not a formula for success. I'll admit that.
All right, man. So your parents, the reason you're a Clippers fan is because your parents had tickets. They brought you up in this strange world of Clipper fandom. But that's kind of paying some nice dividends these days. Yeah.
I mean, my parents moved to LA in, I think, 1984, right when the Clippers moved there, and they weren't about to pay Laker tickets. Nor did they believe the Lakers needed any more fans. So, my dad figured he could watch the other team when they came to town by buying Clipper tickets. And, the 6 of us who have been fans since then, we're seeing some good basketball now, or pretty good basketball at least.
Right. Well, and who do they sit next to in the stands? You got to tell this story.
Yeah. So over the years, they've sat directly behind Sean Rooks' family, which was really nice. They were very nice people. Then Craig Smith's family for a couple years, and now a slightly more noteworthy clan, the Paul family, sits right in front of my parents, and they're, from what I've only met them once or twice, but really nice people, including the new superstar Chris Paul Jr., CP4 as he's known, and they're great. I mean, they've the thing that I guess the team has seen and the family is that everyone's more comfortable this year. Last year it was kind of all thrown together. The trade happened. They started playing basketball like a week later, and people who were in the locker room said it wasn't entirely Chris's team. But now you can sense it from the family and from Chris that everyone's much more comfortable. I mean, that section has kind of it's a funny section. It's mostly the players' families and then the longtime season ticket holders, and they've all kind of come together and it feels like a real community. I know Chris Paul Jr. has become a real superstar these days. I guess he comes mostly for the first halves, and then they go back to the players, family lounge. But my parents tell a great story of last year during the playoffs. CP4 had a little buddy that he found of another season ticket holder's kid. And so every time he'd show up to the game, he'd kind of like peer down the aisle to see if his little buddy was there. And then they'd play for like a half, and then he'd go back. It feels more like a family atmosphere, which from what my parents tell me about the Pauls, is what they're really interested in.
Man, I think we should just almost pause a little bit to acknowledge how cute. We don't shy from cute. We don't just dismiss it when it happens. And Chris Paul's son is as cute as it gets. That's one of my main joys is when his son is up there at the podium. I'm going to transition to a blowhardy talk radio question, though, from your very heartwarming tale of the Clippers family, and ask, does this week essentially show that the Clippers aren't better than the Lakers, like a lot of us perhaps were overreacting and heralding and whatnot? What is your opinion on that intra-city rivalry?
Listen, I was the guy. I picked them to beat the Spurs last year in the playoffs. I think the Clippers have the potential, as they've shown this year, to beat anyone, right? I mean, they can match up. They got Chris Paul. They got Blake Griffin. They're pretty deep by most standards, but they're also really flawed. And some of that comes from within. I think there's a lot of misplaced confidence within the locker room. And then there's, some coaching. What did you say?
So can we get a little more specific, please?
Yeah, I mean, these guys really love each other. They really, they think they've assembled this cast of all-stars. And, Caron Butler has been an all-star caliber player. Jamal Crawford has been a really good scorer. But none of these guys, other than Blake Griffin and Chris Paul, are really elite championship caliber players. They've had some success this year against teams. Miami doesn't match up with their size. The Lakers don't match up with their depth. That kind of stuff. But they can also be beaten, as we've seen by Cleveland and New Orleans, just running them out of the gym.
Yeah, so speaking of New Orleans running them out of the gym, last night as a part of that game, your man Lamar Odom got 19 minutes. DeAndre Jordan, who looked like one of the really dynamite young big men in the NBA for a couple weeks, got 15 minutes. The allocation of minutes in Vinny Del Negro's tenure has been a source of tension, you might say. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, to Ethan's point, I think the chance that the Clippers had to improve this year was from within, right? I mean, Eric Bledsoe, Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan, three very high upside young players who we've seen progress from, especially on the defensive end. The problem is the coach, and let's be honest, and Chris Paul feel a lot more comfortable with veteran guys out there. So who knows if deep down in his heart, Vinny Del Negro wants to be playing Eric Bledsoe more than Willie Green, because Chris Paul will tell you every chance he gets that he loves playing with Willie Green. Lamar Odom played 19 minutes to DeAndre Jordan's 15. And, I immediately went back and I was like, did DeAndre do something that was like incredibly stupid and like bench worthy? Or, was he in foul trouble and I missed it? And both of those answers were no. It's just, it doesn't make sense. Lamar Odom, through 14 games, has posted 6 negative game scores. Last year when he was terrible, last year when he was terrible, his PER was 9. This year it's 2. It just, it's nice when they were blowing teams out. It was really nice that they could kind of try to bring them up to speed in game action, but they don't have, when Jamal Crawford's not shooting 50% from 3, they don't have that luxury anymore.
Charlie, you have a history with Lamar Odom in the sense that he was a Clipper to begin his illustrious career, and now it's come full circle in a very awkward way. Describe the changes physically, mentally, with being a Lamar Odom fan of sorts.
Yeah, physically, I think we all know the changes. He's grown. And frankly, I guess what I've kind of said all along is I'm not sure how much he's grown as a person. I think he got a lot of credit during his time with the Lakers, during his time with Team USA for this growth. And I think, a lot of that was just being in the right situation. I think he wasn't the guy. Well, he came up with the Clippers, and he was the savior. He was Magic Johnson, the lefty Magic Johnson, and he just wasn't. He didn't have that kind of personality. And now he's back with the Clippers. In my opinion, this whole relationship, part 2, was doomed from the beginning because of how they got him. I mean, a day before the Mavericks were going to release him, and they could have signed him for nothing, the Clippers decided to give up Mo Williams and a second-round pick to take on his full $8 million salary. So, the odds are stacked against him from a basketball perspective. And it's weird because kind of symbolic of a lot of the role players on this team, most of the team and the people following the team are basing their opinion of Lamar on his reputation, and it doesn't live up to what he is anymore on the court, obviously.
It's a sad state for Mr. Odom. I have another blowhardy talk radio question. It's stolen from my Twitter mentions last night, so it's not even my own. But I think it's interesting, and it is. If you were doing a redraft of the draft that Bledsoe was in and that John was in, would you, Charlie Widdoes, draft Eric Bledsoe above John Wall? And if so, then why?
This is a good question, Ethan, and whoever asked you that on Twitter. I think there's definitely a time period with the number 1 pick, an undisputed number 1 pick, where we have to assume that he's going to live up to it. He hasn't done anything. Well, that's not true. He has. I'm a big John Wall guy, but to me, Bledsoe has established himself as a premier defender, and I don't think that's hyperbole. I really do think he changes the game on D. I think he's just as, one of Wall's best assets is how fast he is with the ball, and Bledsoe's just as fast, maybe faster. I think he's just as athletic. I think the shot's developing. He's a 50% shooter right now, which we never would have thought at 22 he would have been. I think Bledsoe obviously would have gone ahead of number 18 where he went, and I think I'd take him. I really would. I think Wall would still be number 2 in that draft, but Bledsoe's a really good player, and unfortunately we might not be able to see it in its full glory until he becomes a free agent if the Clippers can't hang on to him and some other team gives him the shot he deserves.
Yeah, I have to point out here that as big of a fan of Eric Bledsoe as I am, I don't know if I'm as big of a fan as Charlie is, who will just send me pictures of Eric Bledsoe dunking or like with the particular expression on his face. I think that assessment, and I don't mean to put words in your mouth, Charlie, might be marred a bit by the fact that your point guard is Chris Paul. So right. The idea of having another point guard on your team is just doesn't make any sense. But I do want to ask, because I think that he's probably, at least in the running for second best guard, depending on how well Jamal Crawford is making step back between the legs 30-footers that night. When Chauncey Billups comes back and that backcourt rotation gets even more crowded, how do the Clippers resolve that? And what's your insight into what, Paul and everyone else thinks?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think this whole when blank Clipper comes back thinking is inherently flawed. If you look on their injury page, they all say out indefinitely, and I think that's for good reason. You don't go into a season expecting a 36-year-old who just came off a ruptured Achilles to come back and do, what you used to expect from him. On the other hand, when he does come back, which could be, in a couple weeks, Willie Green has told Vinny Del Negro that he'll do whatever, so that could mean DNPs, and that's what it should be, right? On the other hand, I think people tend to forget Chauncey Billups threw up a couple stinkers last year in his brief time with the Clippers. He's not even what he used to be, and what he used to be, he hit big shots. He's a good shooter. He got to the line a lot, but he's old now. So I think the Bledsoe's minutes are finally getting up above Willie Green's at this point, and I think Vinny wants to play him in the right matchups, and he'll play about 20 a game, which I don't think is enough, but it's better. I think Willie Green is the one who takes a step back in minutes. The other thing is, you're talking about Jamal Crawford regressing. He's already done that. Over the last 5 games, he's shooting 36%. So he's Austin Rivers-esque at this point. And so we'll see. Again, Grant Hill, don't count on it. Chauncey Billups, I'm not counting on it big time. It's all added bonus when it happens.
I really like the idea that Willie Green has stepped up, saying, "Hey guys, I'll do whatever." Like they weren't going to go, "Hey Willie, you're still Willie Green. Get the hell off the court."
Right. It's bizarre. The way Chris Paul talks about him is, it's a different Willie Green than I've watched.
Yeah. All right. So anything Clippers coming up in the news you want us to be looking out for?
No, I mean, I guess the one thing is that they have they have about a month of a really, really soft schedule, which you would think would be a time to fatten up. But as the troubling comments after their losses to teams like Cleveland, New Orleans, is that they didn't come out ready for the inferior teams, which is certainly a storyline to watch. I mean, the Clippers were a 5 seed last year, and I wasn't convinced that they're much better this year. And if they are, they're going to need to beat those teams.
Sure. All right, man. Well, this was awesome. Thanks for coming on today. Glad you could get some time.
Thank you guys for having me. Appreciate it.
All right. That is Charlie Widdoes from Clipperblog. You can follow him at Charlie Widdoes, Widdoes. Awesome dude, and a guy who is really cool to me when I first came to Brooklyn. He lives about 15 minutes away up in Park Slope. If you're looking for him, if you're trying to find him. All right, Zach Harper and Ethan Sherwood-Strauss. I'm Beckley Mason, and this was a Fly By Your Seats HoopSpeak Live.
I taught my bird to whistle like a referee. I can make a free throw when I'm down on one knee. I've been a fan of basketball since I was 5. Now I am a fan of HoopSpeak Live. Hilarious analysis, a mystifying trope. An angel with a cudgel breaking bubbles of soap. Like honeybees buzzing around a hive. Everybody buzzing about HoopSpeak Live.